great to see very good attendance of our members of the board today, and we welcome you in the audience to our meeting. And our first order is always to have our attorney, Margie Darby, to read the code.
Pursuant to the provisions of section 2.68030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Sports Authority Board may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the board. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met.
Thank you very much. As you notice the agenda today, we have opening remarks, and then we have a resolution honoring Emmett Edwards, and I want us to do that first in our order of business this morning. This is the first meeting following the death of our Executive Director, Emmett Edwards. All of us know that Emmett was a special person. We also know that Emmett strived for perfection in his leadership role with the Sports Authority. And he loved Nashville, and he loved to see good things happen in Nashville. He had a heart for the activities of the Bridgestone Arena. He had a heart for what went on at LP Field. And, he had positive relationships with almost everyone that he had contact. We know that he had very positive relationships with the mayor and with the city government. He had a positive relationship with all the people at Bridgestone and at the Titans, with the Tennessee Titans. He worked well with the board, and he wanted to provide us the type of information I always thought that made our job more pleasant and helped us to understand what our role was and what we should be doing with the authority. Also, before any holiday or on special occasions, I usually talk to Emmett, and he would always tell me that he was going to make a visit down to see his mother. And he was always, he loved her, and he wanted to take good care of her in her older years. And so he was a man that had a lot of love and a lot of feelings and was always about the job. And I think all of you that have worked with him would agree. If you met him this morning, he'd probably have a statement that would say, "How are you doing?" Because that was so common for him, and he did that with real meaning. And for the benefit of the members, I think we all were sent a copy of some editorials and different things that were written about him, and we're glad to read those, and we appreciate them. And this morning, I have a resolution that I thought we could adopt relative to, and I believe you have copies of it in your portfolio here. I'm not going to read it, I don't believe, because that will just take time. Well, I will read it because it's that important. And after I read it, I want us to take a moment of silence just to reflect on Emmett. And a resolution of appreciation, a resolution acknowledging the Metropolitan Nashville Sports Authority's commendation and appreciation of Mr. Emmett Edwards, Executive Director, for his dedication to the state of Tennessee, the city of Nashville, and the Metropolitan Sports Authority. Whereas Emmett Edwards was a native of Covington, Tennessee, a longtime resident in public service of the city of Nashville and of the state of Tennessee, and whereas Mr. Edwards was an alumnus of the University of Tennessee, Martin, serving as the first student administrative assistant to the chancellor of UT Martin, student counselor to the president of the UT system, and the first African-American member of the UT Board of Trustees. And whereas Mr. Edwards served Governor Ned McWhorter in the Tennessee Department of Education and as Assistant Commissioner in the Tennessee Department of Labor, and whereas Mr. Edwards served in the national headquarters as an advisor to the presidential campaign of Vice President Al Gore, and whereas Mr. Edwards served Mayor Bill Purcell in the Office of Economic and Community Development and as the Director of Tourism, And as whereas Mr. Edwards served Mayor Carl Dean as the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Sports Authority, working faithfully alongside the members of the Sports Authority, communicating the needs of the LP Field and Bridgestone Arena, and striving to provide the City of Nashville with first-class facilities. And whereas Mr. Edwards, through his active personal involvement with the City of Nashville and State of Tennessee, both in official and unofficial capacities, had a profoundly positive influence on the lives of many in the city and state. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Sports Authority of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County, the Metropolitan Sports Authority extends appreciation to Emmett Edwards for an outstanding career as a dedicated public service and for the many contributions he made to the City of Nashville and the State of Tennessee. And further be it resolved that the Metropolitan Sports Authority extends its sympathy to Emmett Edwards' family and decrees that they be furnished a copy of this resolution. And this would, I hope, be adopted today by the authority and given to his family. And let's just stop for a moment and take a time to think about Emmett and show our respect. Thank you very much, and I would entertain a recommendation to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll let the minutes reflect that it was unanimously voted at our meeting today. The second thing I wanted to do in my opening remarks is to state when this occurred, and for the past several weeks when some of us didn't realize how sick Emmett was, we depended on our administrative director, Monica Falk-Knudsen, to represent us and to carry on the affairs of the office. And after the death of Emmett, I asked Monica to serve as interim director. If you have seen her resume, she did that on a previous occasion and performed very well. And I would recommend that the board approve what I did in appointing her as interim director, and that she continue to serve in that role until we can have dialogue with the mayor of our city and come back to the board with appropriate recommendations as to who the next permanent executive director will be for the Sports Authority.
So moved.
Is there any discussion of that issue?
I do have a
Okay.
clarification.
Oh.
Are we moving for her to be interim, and can we discuss the process separately?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, I'd like to ask a question. Are we going to give Monica with some help?
Yes.
Are we just going to turn her out there by ourselves?
No, she'll have to have some help. That's a good question, Coach, and I'll speak to that after we go through this motion. Any other discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the question has come up about two things. One is the process of how we move forward, and second, help in the office to help Monica keep the everything functioning as it should. And we certainly would have the authority to authorize Monica through the Department of Human Resources, the city, to secure help that she needs to during this interim period. The process, I think, as I understand it from we will be working with the Human Resources Department of the city. This is a position that does not necessarily have to be advertised. I think we can work with the mayor's office and with the mayor and do an evaluation of the work that has been done down there in the past several weeks, letting each of you participate in that, and then we can determine if we need to go further on locating, or if we decide that our interim director is the person we want do the job.
I think this goes back to some discussion we've had over the last few months about looking at the job description and making sure it matches what we think the person actually needs to do at this point, and then trying to identify the skills necessary. And so I think that's the first step, and I don't know if there's any interest in having a committee of the board look at that and make an evaluation or revise it and come back to the board, or,
Okay.
but I don't think that, I think we've been, we've had two people, two staff positions, and I haven't really understood how the tasks have been broken down between the two. And so I'd like to have an understanding of that. So we've been talking
Yeah.
about this for months, looking at the job descriptions of both, and to see what the actual requirements are before. And I think this is an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I don't disagree that this is a good time to review all that. But of course, we are an instrumentality of Metro, so we're not alone in making those descriptions and conversations. So I think at some point we'd have to involve the mayor's office and probably the Metro Personnel Office in those structures, because I don't believe we have the authority independently to structure the jobs as we wish. But I think your point's well taken. We do want some clarity on the roles for both of those positions. Just a point of order, and you may have already addressed this, Mr. Chairman, but if she's going to serve as an interim, does she get the salary of the executive director during that interim period when she's clearly assumed additional responsibilities?
I would assume that she would get the, be paid accordingly from the time that she was made interim director at that rate.
Okay.
Coming back to, we can appoint a committee. The first thing we might do is circulate to all the board members the job descriptions that we now have for the two positions at the authority, and then we can appoint a committee to work on that, or we can work on it as a whole, however this board wants us to do it. It's a little large group to try to do it as a group, but
Just a question, the final decision on the hire, is that the board's decision or is that the mayor's office?
I think it'll be the board in working with the mayor.
Input from the mayor's
Yeah, that's the way. And I may be wrong, but that's the way I
I
understood
think
it.
Margaret, I'd ask Margaret that question.
Yeah.
It's the board's decision.
Right.
You can have input
Right.
from anyone you want, but it's the board's decision.
Right. Thank you, Margaret. I should have. Margaret.
I agree that it would be a good process for us as a board, in addition to just clarifying. I feel like I need to know more about what happens in the office before I would be able to make a decision about executive director. So I think it would be a good process. And so I move that we appoint a committee to look at the operations of the office, the two job descriptions, and develop or make changes if necessary to the job descriptions prior to hiring our executive director.
Okay, you've
Second.
heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Second. Further discussion of the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Okay, well, we'll proceed with that. Okay. Okay,
I'd offer volunteer to work on that committee.
right. And with your, that'd be great, Alvin. Glad for you too.
I would too, please, Chair.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'd like to be on it too.
And JD,
That's great. That's, most of the time people are running from committees, that's great. Okay, we'll. Okay. Okay, let's move now to our regular agenda. The approval of the minutes for the August 16th meeting. Are there any questions about those? Any? Entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the 16th of August.
Move for approval?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. And then the minutes of the September 21st meeting.
Move for approval? Second.
Discussion. It's been duly made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, approved. Now we'll go to our interim director. Monica, would you give your report, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Elliott. First, I would just like to thank the board for the confidence that you've expressed in me just in the approval as the interim director. I'd also like to thank the board for the support and the phone calls, the emails, a couple of visits that I received in those first couple of weeks after Emmett's passing, and just want to say that I really appreciate that outpouring of support and encouragement during that time. The director's report will be brief. We have one item for your consideration. This is the Wally Bynum Caravan Club. They're requesting a parking waiver of approximately 100 spaces in Lot A at LP Field on Saturday, March the 16th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is an event for their organization, for the Nashville chapter of the Airstream RV Association. The event is being brought to the board's attention and for the board's approval because the organization is a 501c7, does not meet the Sports Authority requirements for staff to approve the event. Last year, the board did choose to grant the parking waiver, and so we're bringing this item again to you. If you have any questions about the event, Fred Lieb is in the audience and is happy to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.
Anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask about this approval? Well, since it's, I think it would be appropriate to have a motion to approve their use.
So moved.
Second.
All in discussion? All in favor of approving this event and using the facilities, say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then also, since we're on the subject of civic events, and this is just for informational purposes, but in your packet behind tab 4, there is a list of the FY13 Sports Authority special event parking revenue that we've received and a list of the events. So I know almost at every meeting we have someone that comes and wants to request approval of an event or of a waiver. And so I just wanted you to have a list where you can see the events that we've had this fiscal year. I've included the month of June because that's when Stewart, our new parking contractor, took over, and they have done a remarkable job. But I just wanted you to see who's been using the lot, the revenue that has been generated as a result. As you look at this list, you'll see where some of the items just say a waiver, and then some, I've indicated that there are some events that received a waiver, but then revenue above the parking waiver granted by the authority was generated, so you can look and see that as well. So I know a lot of these events are going to be familiar. A lot of their organizers have come before the board, so we just wanted to give you an update, and we'll continue to do that. CMA parking is not on this list. If you would like the breakdown, I have that, but at the next meeting, we're going to give a full parking update. Again, Stewart and Eddie and Brasher are in the audience. I hope that you've had an opportunity to meet them. They are doing an incredible job, and so you'll hear from them at the next meeting as well. But again, this is just informational purposes.
Thank you very much for this report. I think that's good for us to have it to see, and I look forward to the report that you will have them scheduled to give to us at the next meeting, Monica.
And that actually concludes my report.
Okay. Thank you very much. And again, we want to thank you and commend you for what you've done during the illness of Emmett and what you're doing today for the authority. Our minutes will reflect that. Okay, let's move to the LP Field stormwater pumps repairs. I didn't know you repaired pumps, Rich, but
Have skill to fall back on.
do we call you the next time we have trouble?
Yes, I will bring Mr. Tarpany and Mr. Freeman along with me, who actually know something about this subject. Now, I appreciate being here this morning. I hope I commend you for your actions taken on Mr. Edwards. It's a great loss, and Emma was quite a character and will be missed by all in Metro. And I know the family will appreciate the gesture done by the authority here. This issue, I know, has been bandied about now for a long time, and I thought hopefully maybe we could take some closure to it if we can reach agreement on it today. We've been talking about the needs to repair these pumps or replace the pumps or whatever at the LP field now for, I don't know, a year or longer probably, and I know the Titans have a great interest in it, as I know the Metro Water Department has a great interest in it, and so, you know, we've seen estimates over the course of ranging from nothing to $1 million or more, and so obviously. Being the financial guy, the lower the better, but I want to make sure we get it done right, or we do what needs to be done. And so after looking at all these various estimates, I said, you know, I said, we got to get some expert in here to sort of make a recommendation for us, because I'm not sure what to do, because I don't know how to repair pumps, as if you didn't know that already. And so I asked Metro Water to take another hard look at this issue and come back with a recommendation on what should be done right now to keep the system operable, and and obviously, if things need to be replaced, repaired, what is the optimal solution at this time, and what can be done. And so the staff has looked at that, and for detail and kind of a more discussion, I think Mr. Tarpey or Mr. Freeman can answer any technical questions, but they have recommended that the replacement of the dry weather pumps, the pump guide rails, pump controller, the electrical soft starts, none of which I know what that is, I will also tell you that, at a budgetary price of $95,000. So big picture, their recommendation, and I've asked them like three or four different times, are you sure this is what should be done at this time, and we don't need to do other things, other issues? And they have gotten back to me on several times, including the Department Director, Scott Potter, that at this point in time, this is their recommendation on what we need to proceed on immediately. And so you might, Brent, you want to come up, you might want to discuss, sort of, you might tell the board authority sort of what needs to be done and kind of how you came to this conclusion.
I guess just to summarize, there are 6 pieces of equipment in the station that we took a very hard look at, as well as the electrical switchgear. And the 2 dry weather pumps are the smaller ones. They can be replaced at a fraction of the cost of the larger pumps. We ran some tests on the motors on the larger pumps, checking the insulation, windings, and we feel very comfortable that the large pumps will remain serviceable for several more years. And that leads to the much smaller price tag, I think, that you see in front of you. As Rich mentioned, he gave us more than one opportunity to increase that number, and just looking at things technically, we could not reach a conclusion that would support doing additional work. But the controller does need to be replaced. And then looking at the electrical soft starts that are there, if the opportunity presents itself, we can also move to variable frequency drives, VFDs. And there are some electrical advantages to that, as well as the opportunity, if you need to start those pieces of equipment with a generator, you can get away with a generator that's just a little smaller, which will save some capital costs as well. But that's probably more detail maybe than you guys cared to have. But
Department's recommendation is that you would undertake, the department would undertake that.
yes, sir, that is correct.
We have a question.
What's the timeline?
The equipment could be delivered on the electrical soft start side or VFDs within about 4 weeks. The pumps, you're looking at more of a 12 to 16 week time frame, but all the improvements could be accomplished by, I'm going to say, May of 2013.
Okay,
I'm sure I do not know how to replace a stormwater pump, but at these prices, I might learn. What happened with the jump in the price as far as from August till October?
Okay, from the two dry weather pumps, I think originally we were looking at about $60,000, and then there was,
But
I think,
everything went up on the page. Those VFDs, the pumps themselves, and those are the ones that are out of service?
correct, yes, sir. The two dry weather pumps are the ones that, one is actually missing.
Missing?
Yes, sir. It was removed after the flood and was not replaced.
So what do they actually do? I mean, you don't have to,
Okay, well, there is always groundwater that is coming into that station, and so the smaller pumps allow you to push that groundwater out to the Cumberland River without running the larger pieces of equipment that can move substantially more water.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
And so if we run the smaller pumps, not only does it save some on electricity, but it also, with the larger pumps, it moves that water so quickly that it starts and then it stops.
Okay.
And then starts and stops. And so you get a significant number of starts on larger pieces of equipment as opposed to some of those smaller pieces of equipment that run maybe a longer period of time, but they're designed for that flow rate.
Okay, and then the price increase, that was just,
Yes, sir. There's about a $60,000 to $95,000 price increase there. The bulk of that is because we also looked at the controller, and we would advocate replacing that. The electronics at that station are pushing about 17 years, I guess, 17 years old, 15 years old, something like that. And in looking at the electronics piece, the controller itself has had some issues recently. And we've had a Band-Aid or two that we've placed on that controller. And so that's better than, that's around $20,000 of that price increase. And then the balance is just an increase in equipment costs from last year.
Yeah, I think the question is more the same pieces of equipment,
Yeah.
12,500 in August, but they're
12.5, and now they're 15.
15,000.
Yes.
Supply those.
Okay, and again, we were looking at budgetary numbers about a year ago, and for most equipment manufacturers, their prices or their new catalogs come out around January the 1st, and so there was a price increase there. And this time, we also solicited a hard quote from our machine shops as well as those equipment manufacturers.
So these are actual numbers versus budgetary numbers?
Yes, sir.
On the last report?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
A couple of questions, if I may. When we brought this up, when it first came to our attention, I guess that would have been March or April. The report we were given indicated that these are things that were pretty well beyond their useful life, needed to be replaced as quickly as possible. We approved their repair because we knew we had sufficient funds to cover that. But if I remember our discussion correctly, the board's preference was to then go ahead and replace the pumps if the capital budget allowed. And in further discussions with you all about that, and I believe I reported back to the board about that, there is sufficient money to replace the pumps. And I'm glad if we don't have to, but I'm curious as to why in March the assessment was they're past their useful life and need to be replaced. And now, I mean, I'm happy if we can get away with a less expensive repair, but I'm curious as to what's changed the analysis in 6 months.
I think early on in the process, some of the testing that we've conducted more recently hadn't been accomplished. And specifically, the piece of equipment that we use on a lot of our other pumping stations for the motors was brought in to check the large motors there. Because once we started to look at budgetary pricing, really the bulk of the cost was wrapped up in the replacement of those 4 large wet weather pumps. To give you an example on the price tag, we were looking at about $175,000 to replace one large piece of equipment, as opposed to doing all of this other work for just under $100,000.
Okay. But your subsequent testing, you're comfortable that if we had an event this weekend, they're ready to go?
Absolutely.
They would do the job?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a great question, Mr. Perry, and you know, because I'm like you, we want to make sure we do it right. And we also don't want to spend money. I mean, obviously, down the road, we'll have to all equipment's going to be prepared, we'll have
Sure.
to face this, but, as I said, I really literally did ask him 3 times, are you sure you're ready to make this recommendation? That this is what we need to do at this point in time, and the answer, you've heard his answer, and I can't rebut that, because I don't know where to begin to rebut that.
I don't know
So,
pumps either, I just want to be sure.
Right. No, I think
Okay.
it's a great question, and machinery does give out, and so we're going to have to replace them, but, if we can put it off for 2, 3, 4 years, then it's something I think we prudently ought to do.
Sure. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Do I hear a recommendation then?
Move for approval?
Motion's been made and second for approval. Questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then it's approved. Thank you, Rich. Very much. Okay, thank you. We'll move right now to the LP Phil update and report. Walter?
Morning, Mr. Chair and board members. I trust that all of you have received a copy of our report. All right, great. As always, we always like to furnish you with the LP Field up-to-date calendar that shows you for an entire year of just what events or activities are going on at the stadium. As you well know, we will be playing. We have 3 home football games left. One would be December 2nd with the Texans. The next game is December 17th, which is a Monday night game. And the third game will be December the 30th with the Jacksonville. And after that, we will have the Music City Bowl, which will be somewhat challenging, but it will get done. We have a game at 12 o'clock, and then the Music City Bowl kickoff is at 11 a.m. the following day. So we will get that done. Tab 2 is our LP Field casualty loss damage. At this particular time, we have approximately just slightly more than $5,000 in claims. There have been some other casualty loss at the stadium, which we are anticipating that will be added to this total and will be taken care of. Tab 3 is our ticket user fee fund balance and a total recap of all of our collections and remissions to date. Tab 4 is our capital fund balance, which is almost $1.4 million. And you also will see a total capital fund balance report dating back to 2000. Our unfiled reimbursement request, which is on tab 5, shows that those are pending reimbursement requests that we have not filed, but at some time in the future, perhaps in December or maybe January, we would like to get with Ms. Darby, Monica, and Bob Lackey and discuss these reimbursements. It's always been a great process that we've been able to sit down and discuss these requests, and it's always been we've always been able to work it out and make sure everybody is satisfied with those particular requests. As always, we are always mindful of the capital fund. There's always been, as a part of the Titans' ability to work with that, is to have some remaining funds in there for any type of emergencies, but we've always kept that in mind with trying to make sure that there's some funds available. Our last, on tab 6, is where we have our pending projects, which is one that will show you at LP Field that what projects have been completed, the ones that are ongoing, and some that we are in the process of doing some scope work. As you can see on the last page, we've almost completed our conversion of lights, of more efficient lighting, LED lights. We're at 90% completion. Underneath that, we're talking about water quality project, which is something that we are developing a scope about. We always like to exercise preventive maintenance involved in that, and that's something that we'll discuss further on down the road. Okay. Are there any questions?
What has been the feedback that you got from the improvements that were done this off-season, or have you had any challenges with any of that?
The feedback has been great. We've added the video boards, the ribbon boards, distributed sound system, the fan zones, as well as the elevators. And we've also added the performance stage. The feedback has been really, really great. Of course, we're still continuing to tweak things just a little bit, just to make sure that everything is working. Now, for me, and I think Don would attest to this, is that the most impactful upgrade is the elevators, which has certainly helped those fans that have been loyal to us, season ticket holders for the past 13, 14 years. Now they have an option where they can walk the ramps or they can ride the elevator. So we are really excited about the upgrades that we have, and we're looking forward to making sure that everybody enjoys all of it. If we can just play a little better on the field, it'll be just fine.
I'd like to ask you a question, and I'm sure you're capable of answering it.
Okay.
Are we winning more football games before the replacements or after the replacements? I mean, does that have anything to do with on the field?
Well, Coach, I'm a high school referee, so I can't really say. It's probably 50-50 right now.
All right.
I think we'll improve it.
Okay.
I'll give you a break. From the area that I sit in over there on the, I guess that would be on the north end zone, we have a problem in that area trying to find out what the time is and the score because of the way that they put the, it's on the side.
It's on the ribbon boards?
Yeah, and we try, sometimes you paying attention to the game and how much time, and so is there any kind of, I guess my question would be, any kind of way that you can incorporate that on the big screen so when we're looking at the action and what happened exactly, we don't have to go 2 or 3 places.
I think we've done that. The score and the down and distance is now up in the corner.
Well, I didn't go to the last game, so you may have.
On the video boards, right. And it was on the last game.
Yeah, my son.
And it's on the ribbon boards in the middle, and it's on the corner of the ribbon boards, and also on the video boards.
Okay.
So it's there. And I know that for the last 13 years we've had it on the large video boards. And we've heard you loud and clear, and it's been added to the large video boards. Yes.
And we could probably arrange for Walter to text you during the game. If you got a bad angle.
Yes,
Walter,
ma'am.
I'm kind of interested in ticket sales, given our bonds, et cetera, our forecasts are based on sold-out games. So can you give me a sense of what's going on with ticket sales?
I'll tell you, I'm going to divert that question to my good friend Don.
Buying ticket sales market for the last 3 games. So we'll continue our sales streak to 144 straight. And we're now trying to project what we do for next year. Much more ahead than we've done in the past.
I probably would continue to ask that question just because I think that's what we as authority need to be looking at. So,
Okay.
all right.
Other questions? Thank you, Walter.
Thank you.
For your report. The next item on the agenda is approval of the city forms, and we'll ask our attorney, Margaret, to...
That's going to be a long time.
You probably recall from the last meeting that you approved the execution of a revolving credit note and a loan from First Tennessee Bank. Well, state law requires that within 45 days of the closing of any financial transaction, that the board be apprised of just a couple of elements, a brief description and the cost and whatnot. So that's what I'm going to do now. Briefly, the loan is in the amount of $10 million. During the pendency of the current lockout that's going on until there is a collective bargaining agreement that's finalized, the maximum amount that is permitted to be borrowed under the note is $3 million. The repayment is expected to come from the capital improvement fee, which is an element from the new agreements with the Predators and Powers Management. The cost, there are a couple of costs that equal $76,500. $40,000 of that is for the bank fee for the note. The financial advisor, which was First Southwest Company, was $15,000, and then the attorneys, Baker Donaldson, will receive $21,500. Then the loan closed on October 10th. We have not done a first draw. They're still in the process of determining, of kind of working through exactly what expenses are going to be reimbursed. Generally, it's a 5-year note. The current interest rate is 3.27%, which is based on LIBOR plus 3.05 basis points. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to ask the chair after this meeting to sign off on the form that will then be filed with the state. And that's all I have on that.
Are there any questions for Margaret? Anybody have? Okay, do I hear a recommendation that we approve her report and authorize signature?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. Thank you, Margaret, very much. One extension, that's right, Nancy. Okay, we'll move to the last item on our agenda other than the adjourn. So Sean, Sean is on to bring us the Bridgestone Arena report, which
that's a big thing to be in front of the adjournment. You get applause for that one. If it's okay with the chair, I'd like to go off the agenda slightly. We have 2 outside consultants here today that we pay by the hour. Okay. And one of them I promised to get out of here by 9 o'clock. And what I'd like to do is introduce Mike Rogers from SSR, or reintroduce him. He's going to give a brief update on our ecological improvements, renovations, if that's okay. And then once our auditor gets here, perhaps introduce them too, to try to keep it within 15 minutes.
That'd
keep the
be
buildings
fine.
down. So, Mike?
Great. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
This last time we talked, we hadn't quite got the contractors on board and things, but I went over, I think, in general, what we were going to do. So if there's any questions or thoughts on that, I'd be glad to answer that as well. But what I'm going to go through is just where we stand on the different projects as we broke this down into multiple projects to try to get it moving early and keep it moving. So where we stand right now is the first project, which is the dehumidification of the bowl in order to make better ice and better conditions for hockey. That project is under contract, and work actually is going to start next week. So we've been working with the contractor, actually done some modifications to the design a little bit to keep it within the budget that we're trying to maintain for each one of these projects. So Lee Company is the mechanical contractor on that, and CS3 is the controls contractor on that piece, and that starts next week. The next project is the lighting controls, and that's done in order to give the operations folks an opportunity to save energy by controlling the lighting in the whole building a lot better. They can fine-tune it to different events. So that actually, the work begins on it next week as well. And Travis Electric is the contractor on that one. That was the winning bid. So the next project after that will be continuing on with HVAC improvements, which are the control system for the rest of the building, and some modifications to the air handlers to make them more efficient, putting variable frequency drives and things on them. So that'll be the next one. And that work is scheduled to start after the first of the year. We're still finishing up the design work on that piece. And then the lighting efficiency improvements begin in mid-December. And that really is about changing lamps, changing lights to more efficient fixtures. And that's a big chunk of the energy conservation work that we're doing. So that'll start in December. The last piece of it is water efficiency upgrades, which we're still working on trying to scope that out and fine-tune exactly what we're going to do based on cost and benefits and all those. And that work will begin first of next year, a couple months into the year probably.
Okay, do you have any questions on the work that's to be done?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So I want to thank Mike in front of everyone and the board and Metro for encouraging us to do this. We've done, 11 energy audits in 15 years, I think. And about 18 months ago, of course, the board asked us to do one and then take action upon it. Obviously, the big missing link was the funding source, and Metro came in to fill that. The funny thing about it is when we reached out after the RFPs to SSR, and we all thought they were the best company, and they are, local company, good partners, engineered the building. I had the advantage of working with them briefly when I was leaving Tampa and they were coming in. And I think in Tampa's project is about 2.5 years. Virtually doing the same things we're doing, plus or minus a little bit. And we've challenged SSR to get this done in, I just want to know what he says. How fast? 9 months. And so a lot of people are saying, well, why isn't it done yet? This should have been done, July 1st. Well, the largest part is the engineering of it, obviously. And then properly laying and sequencing the projects out and the jobs out to make sure that we're minimizing costs so we can maximize what the return is. So, again, I do appreciate you guys doing 2-3 years worth of work, and we'll probably be 12 months. Sort of going a little bit over my timeline, but cutting in half. So, thank you. What I'd like to do is continue to go off the agenda because I rarely look at it, and because they're here now, and introduce Beth Snyder, our Vice President of Finance, to talk about the audit that we submitted last week or whenever it was. We also have our friends from Kraft that can answer any questions that you have. Obviously, the intent of submitting the audit is to get you to approve our incentives, which regardless of how you look at it, net revenue, gross revenue, we once again were very successful and far exceeded the levels that needed to get the incentives. So, Beth, you want to review it?
Thanks, Sean. Good morning. As Sean said, our auditors with Kraft CPA, we have a couple of representatives here. Tracy Thomas and Christina Kirby are here in the event that you have any questions. In your packet, you do have the audit for fiscal year 12. You also have a set of agreed upon procedures, which includes some food and beverage numbers that are required per the agreement to be tested a certain way, and then the incentive fee and the adjusted NOL calculations. So I didn't know if you've had a chance to review. If you have any questions for either myself or any of the auditors, we'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
Beth, I have one question. I just want to know if there were any points of contention between the auditors and management during the course of the audit?
No, and I may have failed to include in there, we actually do have our SAS 114 letter, and if it's not in there, which I'm thinking maybe it's not, I'll forward it to you, and that would state what I just said, that there were no issues. Christina or Tracy would be happy to confirm that as well. And I'll forward that to Monica so she can get it for your records.
I have a question on page 10, note 7. The last sentence says the arena also has an advertising agreement with the hockey club.
Yes, there are some, pardon me.
Go ahead.
Oh. There are some opportunities to advertise in the building for non-hockey. That's what we call it, so it's kind of non-NHL stuff. So we have advertising for all the other events, and we have heard from a lot of our promoters that the arena, because that's where most of their patrons are visiting, it's good to advertise multiple events and stuff that they bring to our building. So we use that source for them to advertise. There's spectaculars out in the front that you see at all events. And so the arena, kind of via relationships with the promoters, do advertise in the building.
And as you said, the auditors are here this morning.
Yes, they are here.
If there are questions from the members of...
If you
other
don't
questions?
Can I ask just a question about process? Do we does the executive committee look at this audit and go over it with the auditors? I mean, how do we, you know, this is, your presentation to us is simply, do you have any questions, which I kind of, not that that's not all right, it's just that I feel like somebody needs to be sitting down with the auditors and going through this page by page, you know what I'm saying, in a more detailed kind of way than just coming before us and saying, are there any questions anybody has? So I'm just wondering, do we have a committee process, or do they sit down with you, Monica, and just go through this audit with anybody on the board?
Well, in the past, the board had a finance and audit review committee.
Right.
And so that was the channel that was used to give the board an opportunity to ask any questions that they had of Beth and the team. And I would imagine the auditors probably could attend that meeting too. But
From Metro Finance's standpoint, Bob Lackey does review this, and I know in conversations with him last week, he had fully reviewed it. He has some staff members that come out and do their own checking of certain areas. For instance, in the incentive fee, they have reviewed all the special event files. I don't know if he's communicated that to you.
And I think the board is aware that Bob has reviewed and that Jim came and spoke with Kyle. But I thought, Margaret, your question was as far as the board having an opportunity to ask questions.
I really wouldn't expect in this kind of setting for us to do the kind of review that I see on other boards. So I don't think it's appropriate. I'm not suggesting that you should go through this with a board for us page by page at all. So I want to make sure that's clear. But I just wondered what our process was as a board for taking a look versus just did we all read, you know.
We rely most on the finance Department of Finance have in the past because they work very closely and they work with the auditors, and we've relied on them, and then we've had a liaison from this board. If there are any questions or comments, Lauren has sort of been our point person relative to issues.
Margaret, to your point, I've reviewed this in detail. Just reading the materials, did not see anything that prompted any drill down any further. I think it's a good audit report. My own sense is when we did have the finance committee, is work seemed to be quite redundant. So it is normal to have finance committees in many organizations, but many organizations also don't have Metro Finance doing the level of detail in addition to the office staff.
And I also think that this board has not only your capability, but other CPAs on this board too, who, are used to these financials and look at them. So I think it would be helpful just for purposes of the public, because sometimes I feel that when you say this to us and we all don't say anything, that we don't look like that we are really taking a look at this, these financials. So it would be helpful, I think, just to say, what the process is about the review of the financials, and then Lauren, if you and other CPAs would weigh in to help us on the board.
Given Margaret's comments, I think, and observations, it may be prudent to either have me or any one of the other members that feel qualified, sit down with management and review it prior to the report being presented to the board meeting.
And on occasions, we have had it ahead of our meeting to review. Each member has had it.
I think that would be
that's
really
a good idea. Thank you.
And I assume that it's Mr. Lackey is asking you all the questions about management that I often see in other audit committees, where is there any, are you seeing any problems with management,
Yes,
that kind of thing? So he goes through that review with you.
Very good.
Okay.
He's very detailed.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question.
excuse me.
Can you talk about the concessions, point of sale equipment, and how that, since that's been implemented, any improvement we've seen, or where we are with our food and beverage revenue?
Yeah, year over year, I'm doing this off the top of my head, I think our concession revenues are up. I normally blend the team and the building because that's the way I always look at it. Between 25 and 30% year over year increase. I think when we presented that improvement, we were accounting for a 7 to 11% increase. And at the time, I said it was very conservative. I really thought it would be in that 15 to 20% range. And obviously, it's superseded that, to a large degree, and we're experiencing similar increase. So it's far outpacing what we thought it would. and then you layer in some of the other improvements. It wasn't just the point of sale and credit card capturing. You know, it was great to jump into the 1990s, but more importantly, a lot of the other things that we're doing with the investment that the concessionaire is making, facelift to the concession stands. Whenever you want to walk around, we can. Everything's more display cooking, a lot of flash, really just updating some things. So it's been tremendous.
Thank you.
I think on the audit front, from our desire anyway, I'm not on the board, but we would love to see an approval of the audit and our incentive payment, if anyone would have some deep desire to.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved.
Extension.
One extension, Nancy. Right.
Well, now I'll try to adhere to the agenda. Very briefly, on our finances, you know, we're off to a very nice start. And we put July, August numbers together, you know, when we first requested. We're pacing ahead of budget. We're pacing ahead of last year. Normally, I'll choose which one to report to, you know, if one's not as good as the other. But, you know, right now, we're pacing ahead of budget. And, you know, the prior year, when you look at the bottom line, we're about $300,000 ahead of both, an improvement over prior year and over budget. And, you know, when you look at it, we had a very strong July. August, we had a lot of shows. They all didn't work out the exact way we wanted them to, but as I've explained many times, we're always going to be very, very aggressive. And when you are doing that, you're going to have some shows that aren't working the way you want them to. But when you look at where we're sitting right now from a building standpoint, we're in tremendous shape. And again, the way we're looking at our finances, the way we're attacking them, we're going to grow them by growing revenue. We're going to grow them by growing service levels. That's where we're going to continue to improve and really bring about the results that people wanted when the building was built. So again, we're off to a great start. I think we're going to, it's early to say this, you know, last year we're coming off of more of a softer touring year. This fiscal year I think will end up being the strongest fiscal year we've ever had for a number of shows, the types of shows, the type of sold out shows. When we do our budget or when we do our forecasting, our long range planning, we rank our shows in A, B, C's. I never like saying D's, but we do plan for those as well, our sporting events. And we're probably right now on an outlook 3 or 4 shows ahead of where we thought we would be, but more importantly, a lot of those C's turned into B's, many of the B's turned into A's, so we're pretty excited about it. When you look at the spectrum of events that we've done already this year and what we have on sale, I mean, it's tremendous. You know, we started October in a strong fashion. We had Disney on Ice, the strongest run that we ever had. You were up 20-30% over last year, which was up 20% over the year before, which was up, I think, 15% over the year before that. And again, that's a byproduct of things that I've described in the past. Tearing silos down, using one sales staff, one marketing staff, and it really comes to fruition on the family shows more so than anything else. Unfortunately, one of the byproducts of a strong Disney on Ice show was the lockout. Again, we have 40 salespeople, marketing people that we kept employed. We thought it was important. We wanted to have new connections to our season ticket holders by really selling our other events. The byproduct of this, when we do return to the ice, is these lessons won't be lost. We're going to continue to do them, so we're going to continue that great growth. But again, when you look at the types of shows that we just did in October, that we just concluded, Disney on Ice, we brought in a minor league hockey game to fill that void or the need. We brought Knoxville and Huntsville together. We had 6,000 people for that event, which was a record for that league. I wish we were playing NHL instead, but it was a fun night. We had Rascal Flatts, the final show on that tour. We had the biggest wrestling night that we've had in, I think, 10 years with WWE, Monday Night Raw, and I know you're all watching. We just finished the CMAs, which, again, just continues to grow as an event, and the presence and the footprint from national or international broadcast. The Christmas show for CMAs continues to grow. It wasn't that long ago where we didn't use the upper bowl or even the club level, where now it's a full arena event. Working very closely with Steve Moore and his group. So really just things are going tremendously. Again, when you look at the shows that are on sale, from an eclectic standpoint, we've never seen a spectrum that we're enjoying right now. Coming up, you know, Wiz Khalifa, The Who, the Grammy Selection Show, which again is another national broadcast event, which honestly we're doing that for the hopes of impressing that organization to see where else we could take that relationship. Aerosmith, Toby Mac. Aerosmith, first time they're ever playing in our building, which is tremendous. 2 basketball games with Western Kentucky and Louisville, MTSU and Vanderbilt. 2 Christmas shows, Base Nectar, and just goes on and on and on. Lady Gaga, Pink. So a lot of great things are ahead on these financial reviews, just so early in the year. It's hard to really get into it, except we're far, far ahead of it. I like to brag a little bit, as I've been accused of, but we did just receive our 2nd or 3rd straight ACM Awards, Academy of Country Music, for Venue of the Year, and we were just nominated for Polestar's Arena of the Year, and that really is the Oscar, if you will. We love them all, and I think we've been nominated, Chris will know, he sells this. He doesn't know. I think 5 straight years, and I think 7 years since the building's been open. So hopefully this year we win, because it's kind of getting depressing watching some other guy go out there and accept it. So this should be the year. We're pacing right now as the 9th busiest building in America through 3 quarters, and I put a big asterisk next to that because there are 2 shows that they didn't count in September for us that we'll be counting moving forward. So I think we're going to end the year as, for the 3rd straight year, as in the top 10 busiest buildings in America. So things are tremendous. That's all you want to be, is in that top 10, because when you are, then you're in the hunt to someday secure that top seed. And what's important about that, beyond having a positive mention by me or getting some of our friends in the media maybe to write about it someday, is the impression it makes on tours, managers, and acts that Nashville is different than maybe it used to be, and we can outpace and we can outdraw and we can outgross any show that plays in another venue, and that's why it's more important, than anything else. 2 last things that I want to hit before you have any questions on the arena update. Again, you got it on our environmental improvements or renovations. We continue to give the building facelift, whether it be on the food and beverage side, cleaning the building up, bringing more personality to it, all for one reason: to be ready for opening day. Ideally, all these things would have been debuted October 13th, but unfortunately, we are sitting in the middle of lockout right now. There's not a whole lot I can talk to on the lockout, but I'm pretty optimistic about all things always. And whenever you're that way, you always get your heart broken a little bit. But whatever you read in the papers is the same thing that we see, and there are meetings going on, and I think we're on our 3rd or 4th straight day of meetings that are extending deep into the night. And as all things, the more you talk, the higher the likelihood that something good's going to happen very soon. What I'm excited about with our team, it's probably the best team that we've ever had come back to be on the ice. We only have 2 new players coming onto our roster, and one in Chris Mason that's been here 2 other times already, so he's part of our culture. And then Scott Hannon, large defenseman, very responsible. It's really going to add to it. When you hear our coach or our GM speak about it, they're optimistic about the team that we have. So when we have opening day, we're going to be opening up a lot of new fun things in the building, and with a team that no one's ever been more optimistic about. So we're excited about it. And again, you saw the news. We canceled games through the end of November. Our next scheduled game in December would be December 1st, and we'll see where that takes us. But if you have any questions about that, I'd love to answer it, or say I can't answer it for fear of fine. But Jeff Cogan's sitting behind me. He has more money than I do. Maybe he wants to violate the rules.
We noticed that he was hidden back there.
He is hidden. As you can see, Jeff also has a small growth under his nose. It's not as impressive as mine. He said he did it because he didn't want to grow it during the CMAs. I just hate cancer more than he does, obviously. If you haven't noticed this ugly thing on my face, and many of you with facial hair wear it well, I don't. But it is Movember, and any chance I get to grow facial hair, not shave, and raise some money for cancer, we do. So if you haven't donated to me yet, or if you haven't broadcast my link out yet, you'll get something today to give you a chance to. Jeff will probably send you something as well. But I also want to hit the fairness and ticketing legislation. That'll start making a little bit more news. We're part of a coalition that came together, I don't know, late spring or early summer. And basically what has been put together is a pretty impressive group of Tennessee venues, teams, artists, agents, managers, really those that are in our industry on live entertainment. Locally, it's ourselves, the Predators and Bridgestone Arena, the Titans, LP Field, T-Pack, the Ryman, and throughout the state. It's virtually every venue in the state getting together with talent. It's the first time I've ever seen anything of this magnitude and this size, and this bringing varying interests with one common goal: protecting those that come to the venues, protecting those that decide to buy a ticket and enjoy a night out. And that's really what the goal of this group is. And you're going to see a lot of things being bantered about here and there, but the legislation will go forward in late winter, early spring. But the goal of it is very, very simple. And I challenge anyone to challenge what I'm going to say on it. And I feel very good about it, because the main tenets of what we're doing, it's a consumer advocacy bill. No more and no less. The goal is to give more information to those buying tickets. All we want, scalpers, if you will, everything's covered under that, is to disclose who they are when they're selling something, what the original face value of the ticket is or was, to be honest about whether or not they even own the seat yet that they're trying to sell. We had Maroon 5 go on sale last week or 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior to that show going on sale, there were 800 or 1,000 tickets being offered for sale in the secondary market, and the show wasn't on sale yet. So what happens is someone will buy the ticket, they don't go to the normal on sale, they'll get an email after the on sale from that scalper that says, hey, thanks for your purchase. Unfortunately, the ticket you bought, we don't have, but we have this one instead. And it's giving a lot of angst and fear to those that, fill our buildings up every night. The other is we want them to stop deceptive marketing practices. When you go on Google and you search, pick your show, pick your venue, whatever it may be, you'll come up with 1 or 2 or 3 pages of things that look like Bridgestone Arena or the Predators or the Titans or the Ryman, and they're not. They're directing people to a secondary site. The key is we're not trying to outlaw scalping. I wish somebody would, but we're not. All we're trying to do is if someone's selling on the secondary market, they're going to do certain things and inform the consumer to a certain level. They'll also have to register with the state and then ideally pay sales taxes on their sales that currently are not paid.
Is the legislation you're proposing based on what some other states have done, or?
Well, it's funny, when you look at this group, this type of group normally plays defense. And I remember 10 or 12, 13 years ago, a similar group was put together when scalping was looking to become legal. Most states at the time, it was illegal, or you could only sell a ticket for more than X of face value. And the legislation was put out there, to legalize it. And then groups like this got together, and I was part of it in a handful of states, and then we tried to stop that legislation. And it's always harder to stop something than introduce what you want to do. So this is a little bit unique this time. You look at Tennessee as a leader in the live entertainment industry, and as such, we're looking at this saying, you know what, we have so many people that live here, that are part of this industry, that have built the industry, and specifically, with Tennessee, you have all these companies that are in Washington and North Carolina and California. They aren't here, they aren't thriving here, they haven't made the investment. So this is kind of the first of its kind of its model, but at the same time, I think it's happening in about 8 or 9 other states. So, and again, you'll see other legislation by the opposition that will come out, and they're going to try to limit what we can do or how we sell tickets. None of that will inure to the benefit of the consumer. It's going to be helping them by limiting, what we do or how we do it. And our bill is nothing but a consumer advocacy bill. So if you have any questions about it, as you start seeing it a little bit more in the media, please don't hesitate. Pick up the phone, call me. I assume call friends across the water, call the Ryman, whoever it may be. We're all pretty united on where we are. So, but if you have no questions on that, again, we're sitting in a very nice place from a business standpoint, from a fiscal year where we're going to go, from a calendar year where we're going to end up, and most importantly, when we get back on the ice, the year's going to be even that much more special. And I look forward to Coach making fun of our record on the ice, because I'm pretty envious of our friends across the river because they're playing games. So. Any questions?
Any other questions? Any?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank all of you for being here today. Thank you.
I have one more thing.
Thank you.
Okay. I wanted to go back to the salary for Monica in the interim position. I thought we probably need to give specific direction to Human Resources as to what amount she will be paid during the interim period, the effective date, whether that she's actually doing both jobs, will she get both salaries, will she get the director's salary?
I think in the interim, it would be the director's salary.
Okay.
Is the way I understand.
Okay, so,
Do we need a motion?
do we?
Yeah, it'd be fine.
Yes. A motion is needed.
Yeah, okay.
And Human Resources.
Okay. Are you making?
Yes, I will make the motion.
What's the motion?
That, do you know the effective date, Emmett?
It would, October 8th.
Okay. I move that Monica Falk-Knudsen be given the director's salary effective October 8th forward during her status as interim director.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Nancy. Any other?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to bring up, I read it in the city paper. Those of you that have been around quite a while, I used to be a fellow, used to sit on the front row. I think his name was Frank Curry, had the big cowboy hat.
Yes, sir.
You know what he passed?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, he passed, and he used to always sit there. He always was trying to get a circus in here someplace, or trying to do something. But he would always sit on the front row, and he'd always get here early, and I just wanted to pass that along. Because, you know, he didn't miss no meetings.
Right.
And he was here early all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Coach. Our next meeting will be December the 13th, 8 o'clock. If you want to put that on your calendars.
December the 13th.
Did I get that date right, Monica?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
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 Will that be here?
Be here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.